What is the biggest I shouldn't have said that moment you've ever had right after you said it? Not me, but my boss and I were riding up the elevator. I was 6 months pregnant at the time and it was obvious, second kid's due. There was also another pregnant lady standing right next to me, then another lady who appeared pregnant. My boss, who is a very nice lady, said, "Oh, look at you three standing there." The one on the end said, "Oh, I'm just fat." Cue exit, stage left. My friend's mom has a bit of a tummy, and whenever she would get asked when she was due, she would tell people that she had just miscarried and not lost the weight yet. Made more of an impression than if she told them it was a rude question to ask. I was picking up my daughter from my wife, who was in a meeting for work. The meeting consisted of a bunch of the managers from the local area, and the district manager was doing the meeting. We both work at the same company, so I know who he is, and he's a great guy that is pretty personable. On my way out of the meeting room, he says to me, "See you later, Dad." Just out of pure instinct to say something funny. The words "that's daddy" to you slipped out. That's not embarrassing. That's just funny. My wife and I were going somewhere. Do I look okay? She was wearing brownish capris, a light colored camisole, and a brownish shirt over it. I tried to come up with something cute and brown. Me like a potato. It is now the basis for all clothing related questions. 20ish years later. Do I look like a potato in this? B, but a cute potato. A tater tot. A number of years ago, my wife was complaining about being overweight. She wasn't overweight at all. In an attempt to comfort her, I put a hand on her shoulder and said, "You'd be perfect if I was blind." Her reaction was not what I had in mind. Good try. I'm adopted. I was in trouble and told my mom she couldn't punish me because she isn't my real mom. The look on her face made me feel worse than any punishment. Instant regret. During my wedding ceremony, I said "with lusting devotion" instead of "lasting devotion." I mean, both phrases work. I don't mind having to commit to lusting devotion for the rest of my married life. Wedding vows are the best time for verbal fails. My husband promised his fatality instead of his fidelity. I told the toddlers at my work whilst in the yard, "Fun fact, some people eat snails," like that one. Cue me running around stopping children under my care from eating snails. You done fricked up. My neighbor was telling me the story about how he and his ex-wife split up. Weeks after the divorce, she got married to his best friend and they moved a few states away. I said, "One man's trash is another man's treasure." He did not think it was as funny as I did. Can't blame you. If my wife split and married my best friend a couple weeks later, I would probably consider her trash myself. So you had at least a 50/50 shot of him agreeing. I was at a rehearsal with a blind opera singer, accompanying her as part of a string quartet. The venue was pretty cramped, and they didn't bring any stands for the music, so they set them up on chairs. I didn't bring my glasses that day, and was squinting a little bit to read the music, so the audio technician asks me if the setup is okay, to which I reply, "It's okay, I'm just blind." The worst part is, everyone gives me a weird look, but I keep on trucking cause I didn't even realize. Until 10 minutes later when I get the realization that I called myself blind in front of an actually blind person. She was very nice about it, but it was still mortifying. I'm visually impaired, and have several blind friends. Relax, people do this all the time, we don't mind. I saw some dumb 2007 meme that said, "Hey, man, thanks for not being a M addict." I said it to my youth pastor cause I was a dumb teen. He replied, "It wasn't easy getting away from it, that's for sure, but I'm glad I'm here." Honestly, that might have made him feel good. I'm sure he probably doesn't get much thanks on his hard work getting away from fulfilling his M addiction, and it may have given him inspiration to keep going. My friend asked who directed the movie we were about to see. I replied, "Your mom." It was her first time out of the house since her mom was murdered. Man, I'm happy that the "your mom" phase died before I could say it to someone whose mom passed. My mom was in hospital. As it turns out, she would never leave the hospital, but at this stage she was sick but not that sick. She had a private room with a little enclosed garden outside. She had a blue-tongued lizard who lived in the garden, and she would pass her long days watching the lizard scurry around and catch bugs and lazing in the sun. She would tell us every time we visited what the lizard had been up to, the funny things it had done and made her smile during the day. She lit up when telling me about its adventures. One day when I came in to visit, the blue tongue was out the front of her room in the car park. It had been hit by a car and killed. I went to visit mum and she was very sad. She hadn't seen her friend the lizard all day. I said to her, oh yeah, I saw him out in the car park. He won't be back. He got run over by a car. As soon as I said it, I tried to suck the words back in, but I couldn't. Her face crashed. She was crushed. I tried to say maybe it was another lizard or that a lizard would be back, but it was no good. The damage was done. A week later she died. She had been in the hospital for 3 months and was getting better, they thought. But this day, she just died. They thought she had just given up. That was in 1996. 22 and a bit years ago. And I still wake from sleep thinking about that. I still shudder every time I recall how stupid I had been. I'm now a 50-year-old man and I can never and will never forgive myself for that stupid statement. It still makes me cry. Business school interview over Skype. They were very interested in a global conference I was helping organize and suddenly asked, what would you do in the event of a terrorist attack? Blanked out. First thing out of my mouth was, well, the event's going to be a bomb. I didn't get in. I was doing work at the family farm when our mom's insurance rep was visiting. I overheard them explaining her benefits, that the insurance will pay out at death or age 100. Mom, I'm pretty sure my time will come before I'm 100. Me, if not, we'll just take you out back and put you down. The insurance guy looked like a deer in headlights. My 80-year-old mom got up and chased me down laughing, to give me a fake spanking. ETA, my mom just called. We revisited that moment and laughed again. Haha. Or, I hope she does live to 100. My family jokes like that all the time. Blind date. Your jacket looks like one of those bin liners with the yellow pull string. It really did. I didn't mean it negatively. This gave me a good chuckle. My boss used to take the pee out of my long hair. I'm a metal bloke, so I gave that speech from Withnail and I about hair are your aerials. They transmit information from the cosmos directly to your brain. This is the reason bald-headed men are uptight. My boss was a little uptight bald man. I swear he was almost going to spark me out. Asked one of my best friends what she was getting for her father on Father's Day. Her father, who had died of cancer 1 month ago at the most. Flowers would be traditional, I guess. I never heard of the rapper's XXXTentacion before. When he died, a friend of mine posted on some social media RIP XXXTentacion and I thought it was some peace site going offline and my friend really wanted to express his love. So I replied, LOL bro rip. Some other friend said, well that's harsh. Why would you say that? To which I, still thinking P, replied again, cause who cares, there are other ones out there. Turns out there was a lot of shady polemics around the rapper and a bunch of people I know started arguing after me. Some calling me sick for praising someone's death no matter who. Others calling me a hero for standing up against bulls rappers or something. It was a whole thing between the lot of them. And I was just thinking P, you know? Can't blame you for thinking P. It sounds like a hentai site if you forget that it's a rapper. I made someone cry by accident. A friend of mine told me her grandmother passed away recently, and how much she was struggling to cope with that. So, later that day we were discussing about a school-related project with some other friends. We were not going to finish our project before the deadline, so I jokingly said, well, what if we pretend someone's family member died, and that's why we couldn't focus that well? Right after saying that I looked at my friend who began to tear up a bit. I immediately thought, oh crap, that's right. I'm an idiot. Hey, it could have been worse. At least you didn't follow it up with oh, that's right, we don't need to pretend. Me and my friends were having a group photo session for prom at one of our houses. Everyone's parents were there taking photos of their daughters or sons with the dates they had. I was going alone and one of the parents asked me who I was going with. I immediately blurted out my right hand. Dads were holding back laughter. Moms were standing there shocked. Good times all round. Absolute mad lad. I once accidentally referred to a friend of mine with a newly shaved head as a leukemia patient. You guessed it, in front of a leukemia patient. My husband once told his mum's friend who we hadn't seen in a while that she looked great with her big weight loss and asked what she had been doing. Her response, I got leukemia. Sitting in the bus with my crush. Behind the window she notices billboard with some exclusive underwear ad, and I said that I cannot really imagine her in it. In my middle school music class we were studying the Underground Railroad. Our teacher asked us to name famous African Americans from the period. My hand goes up. Now, I had the image of Harriet Tubman in my mind. I still have no idea why I said what I was about to. Teacher calls on me. I answer, Martha Stewart. Class roars with laughter. My brother got a twofer when our grandmother had her leg amputated. We went to visit her the day after. During the conversation we were talking about how expensive the hospital visits can be, and without thinking he said to her, I bet this visit is going to cost you an arm and a leg. Not even 5 minutes later he asked about the recovery time but phrased it like, how long will it take you to get back on your feet? Thankfully my family has a warped sense of humor and we just laughed at this. Congratulations on graduating. I didn't graduate. The rest of the class had graduated. She had failed a module. Oops. I was talking with one of my friends. I don't remember what he said, but I made a "your mom" comment, only to remember that his mom recently died. So I think fast and say in a joking way, no wait, that wasn't her. That was another friend's mom. My friend burst out laughing and telling me that her mom died as well. At least he was a good sport about it. Not exactly the same, but I was adopted, so when people would say "your mom" comments, I would reply with a forlorn look and I don't know my mother. The look on people's face was always priceless. Got a good laugh and an odd coping mechanism out of it. Someone was explaining to me that his brother-in-law had just passed away unexpectedly due to a heart attack. My first comment, bless his heart. I feel bad for laughing at this. Walking into a practical assessment, the lecturer tried to calm us down by saying, just pretend I'm not here. My response, geez, the lecturer is a dickhead. Managed 92%. Anyone with a sense of humor would only see that as a witty joke. When asked in a job interview why I didn't want to continue working with children, I blurted out that I love my own, but other people's kids are see. Instant terror inside at my own idiocy. Still got the job. Guess she agreed. Made a joke about putting a noose in the tree for Halloween. To a buddy whose sister had committed suicide by hanging. Never a more uncomfortable silence. Similarly, I made a joke that involved a girl's mom being dead to my best friend. Her mom died a month before. We had this old lady who worked in the office of my uni. She was an absolute bee to everyone and everything. Rude and clearly hated her job. But she was in control of things like the fax machine. I had a long application for a job that took a year back in college. I was always sending faxes of important files and had to deal with her regularly. Every single time she gave me crap. Yelled at me for putting the papers the wrong way. Yelled at me for telling her she was putting the papers in the wrong way. Yelled at me for interrupting her work. Finally, one day, I came in and she was yelling at a student for something. He left in a huff. She sat down and I came to ask to use a fax. As I'm asking, she puts her finger in my face and starts a call to her friend or something. I see a girl on the seats waiting and I look at her and mouth, "What a bee." "That's my mom," she says. "Sorry, your mom's a bee." I went to my uncle's funeral a couple of days ago. As we were about to leave to go to it, we were wondering what family would be there. Without thinking I said, "I wonder if Uncle Steve will be there." That's who the funeral was for. Right away, I was like, OMG, no, why did I say that? My uncle never showed up to his own funeral. The funeral home was behind schedule in delivering the casket to the church, so we had the whole ceremony without him. He would have thought that was hilarious. Two teachers in the staff room talking about a pretty hot female member of support staff. One says yeah, she was getting smashed by this trainee teacher for a bit, then he binned her off and she kept pestering him afterwards. Right, bunny boiler apparently. I just stared at him wide-eyed until he noticed the senior staff member, who is the mother of said support staff, sat right next to us. He looked like he was going to pass out. Yeah, she was getting smashed by this trainee teacher for a bit. Okay, I get it. Then he binned her off and she kept pestering him afterwards. Yup, everything makes sense still. Right, bunny boiler apparently. Sorry, what fricking language is this? One classmate was talking about her dislike for dogs, so naturally I, with a joking tone, asked what dog bit you, and she quietly responds, a German Shepherd. Hahaha, I'm just imagining your face when she said that. My brother and I worked at a fast food restaurant. The one type of new burger we served took 15 minutes to cook, though so often we would have to tell customers and suggest they find a table to wait if they were willing. Well, my brother was working cash and this person in a wheelchair decided to wait. My brother was like, "It'll be a while for it to be done. I'll bring it to your table when it's ready if you just want to take a seat, so pull up a chair." Crap. Thankfully the person had a good sense of humor, but holy crap, it was funny watching him put his foot in his mouth repeatedly. I was in the car with my parents and my mom turned around and told me to put my seatbelt on. I responded by saying that I wouldn't and I hoped I would die in a car crash or something to that extent. I don't remember the exact words I used or why I even said it. The whole car went silent, as if the initial comment I made wasn't bad enough, as I painfully remembered that my father's first wife and unborn child were killed in a car accident on their wedding night some 40 years ago. I am also her namesake. I was fighting with my mom and she said something about I don't pay for this house. But since she was and has been a stay-at-home mom at the time, I said technically you don't either. And that was the wrong thing to say and I knew I had it in for me. I'll take words that can kill you for 400, Alex. One of my best friends accidentally killed her puppy by stepping on it. Months later I asked if she wanted to give the pet owning another shot, but maybe take a bigger dog, just in case. I shouldn't have said that. She was heartbroken and didn't talk to me for months. I felt so bad. A friend of mine did the same thing with one of his cat's kittens. Traumatized the guy for weeks cause he kept having flashbacks of the sound it made anytime he heard anything similar. Co-worker and I were stocking shelves and chatting one day and he asked me if I saw the 9/11 commemorative shoes Nike was releasing and I said, "What? Are they covered in rubble?" Realized as soon as it was coming out that I was surrounded by 4 customers and a really uptight older rich white community, so that went over really well. Of course Karen wants to see my manager. No write up though. When I was 7 years old I was hanging out with my sister and her friend. Her friend had really bad acne. They were about 16 years old. I remember looking at her friend and asking, "What are those bumps all over your face?" She walked away crying shortly after. I felt really bad knowing I hurt her feelings but not knowing how. I had the almost exact same thing happen to me when I was an acne covered teen. Made me laugh thinking about it. My sister used to have a lot of pimples and especially on her forehead, and one day she was rubbing her forehead and my dad asked her if she's reading Braille. We all laughed. She almost cried. We had a friend of the family, my grandma's lifelong friend, who was labeled a crazy cat lady. She had several dozen cats. Most were feral and lived outside, but occasionally she'd nurse and tame sick kittens when they came around and they'd become inside cats. Most had feline AIDS and left snotty marks on the walls from the constantly sick cat sneezing on them. The whole house reeked of ammonia from the dozen litter boxes she placed in her open garage and basement. Anyway, she was a kind lady and after her husband passed it became my dad's personal responsibility to make sure all her heavy lifting was taken care of. So after all these years of sick cats and ignoring warnings from friends, naturally she gets bit, and it gets infected. It was horrific. It just kept getting worse and worse to the point her foot had to be amputated. Cut to the point. One day my dad volunteers me to help him clean the litter and power wash a garage. I'm a dickhead teen at the time, so naturally I complain about how the smell makes me sick and I hate cats, so why do I have to be the one to blah blah, I'm an entitled prick. So he informs me we need to help now more than ever because the infection caused a chain reaction of health problems and she might not last much longer despite her sunny disposition to everything going on. To which I respond, "Saru, you could say, she has a foot in the grave." I've never seen my dad look so disappointed. Well, at least it wasn't your grandmother. I was once getting a fine for jaywalking. The cop was going on about safety and how it's for my own good. He says, "Why do you think we're doing this?" as a rhetorical question. Me being me and having a bad habit of answering rhetorical questions, I said revenue raising. The cop, my friend, and I all kinda just had a look on our faces of did that just happen. The cop asked me what I said and I was like, "Oh, nothing," and he knew exactly what I said and proceeded to go on a rant about it. I would have repeated myself since I'm already getting a fine for jaywalking and haven't committed any other crimes. Like what's he gonna do? I used to work in a restaurant. I was seating a one-top, a very attractive gentleman, in a large booth because all of our smaller tables were full. He commented on how much space there was, so I ironically said, "Just get on in there and spread your legs immediately." I thought, stretch you idiot. Stretch your legs, but didn't correct myself. He left me a generous tip, so maybe he was into it. This was said by my husband, but I could see the look on his face. I was 9 months pregnant. We went grocery shopping when we saw another pregnant lady, and I said, "Oh, she's wearing the same pregnancy pants as I do." My husband looked at me in disbelief and answered, "Really? Well, hers must be a way smaller size then." I think I was mad at him for 4 days. I'm amazed he survived this. My dad made a harmless comment on Instagram about my Halloween costume and I think I cried for 15 minutes. I'd apologize to a person who replied with, "We can be friends again." Afterwards I'll let out the most unenthusiastic sarcastic little yay. The silence wasn't encouraging. Oh goody. Was standing behind a lady checking out at Walmart. She had several 40-50 can packs of Bud Light that she was buying. It looked like she was stocking up for something. So I asked, having a party? She started at me for a second and said, "Nope, just a Tuesday." One of the more cringe-worthy episodes I've had with random people. Several people have brought up that she might have been messing with me. While I wish that were the case, it wasn't. There was more to the interaction, where I put my foot even deeper in my mouth, that told me that firmly wasn't the case. For another, I live in a fairly rural area, where there's a decent amount of alcoholism. It's come to my attention that 40-50 packs of Bud don't actually exist. It was probably 30 packs, but still she was buying like 6 or 7 of them. When I worked at a supermarket at uni, a guy came through with a small bottle of vodka. I'd spent the afternoon stocking that aisle, so I mentioned that the bigger bottles were buy one get one free, and only 10% more expensive. The guy gave me a sad look and said, "That sounds great, but whatever I buy I'll end up drinking tonight." That was the day I learned to never comment on alcohol purchases. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.